Hey there, my name's Pastor Blake Moore. Thanks so much for checking out one of our latest messages online. And we know that you will be blessed, encouraged and inspired as you watch this message today. Thanks for checking out one of our resources, and we would love to meet you in person very soon. God bless.
Summer reset your rhythms. Christian author and philosopher Dallas Willard once called hurry the great enemy of spiritual life in our day. And I quote, "You must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life." A couple of strong statements, but back to that first statement. It's the great enemy of spiritual life. Now, the longer I've sat with that, and I've been reading a couple of books to help in my preparation with this, and I'll refer to those as we go along, the more that I think that, in fact, hurry is the issue underneath so many of the other issues of our day. If you think about it, from anxiety to digital distraction, to the breakdown in family, to chronic loneliness, to exhaustion and burnout, and so on and so on. Think about it. Corrie ten Boom, the Dutch woman who saved many Jews from the Nazi Holocaust, once said, "If the devil cannot make you bad, he will make you busy." You think about it. When you're asked, or when you ask somebody, "How are you going? How are you doing?" Generally they say good, but busy. The usual reply is, "I'm busy." When was the last time, by the way, if you think about it, when somebody said, "Oh, I was bored"? For those who grew up maybe in the 60s, 70s and 80s, do you remember those times? They were actually bored. But today you don't hear a lot about people, young people, being bored. And maybe it's because, well, everyone's just busy. Everyone's busy. Students are busy. Young parents are busy. Single professionals are busy. Empty nesters are busy. Retired people are busy. I spoke to a retired person the other day, and it's that common response of, "I don't know how I had time to work, I'm just so busy in retirement." Anyone else heard that before? Yeah, you get it. So too busy to live emotionally healthy and spiritually vibrant lives. John Ortberg, a pastor and author, he said this, that busyness isn't just a disordered schedule, it's a disordered heart. And so for many of us, hurry is the default mode of our existence for a variety of reasons. And as we think about what Scripture has to say this morning, as we open God's living and active word, that God is inviting us into a place of life where we can breathe, where we can see beauty around us, that we can see and hear the people that we do life with, that we can share in community with. In addition to that, of course, is to discern the will of God for our lives. Yet we fill our life with work and study and hobbies and family and friends and email and exercise and volunteering and eating and church, and by the way, these things called phones. Don't get me wrong, I live in the same world as you do. And so when I'm speaking today, it goes a little bit like this, all right? So I've learned a lot through this journey. But those kind of things that I've mentioned, it does something to us at a soul level. We pay for it emotionally. We pay for it physically. We pay for it financially. But we also pay for it, of course, spiritually, because there's this kind of busyness, is there not, that goes past our schedule and right into our inner being of life. Now, my point here is that there's more at stake than our emotional health, as if that's not enough. but our spiritual life hangs in the balance itself because we are distracting ourselves into spiritual oblivion. W.F. Adams, the Anglican priest, in fact C.S. Lewis's spiritual director, once called hurry the death of prayer. To walk with Jesus, he says, is to walk at a slow, unhurried pace. That was written, as you can tell, in the 1940s. Psychologists are now diagnosing people with hurry sickness. We drown ourselves in 24/7 living. We have become perhaps the most emotionally exhausted people in history. Most of us don't rest until we have to. We confuse rest with entertainment or distraction. And what we miss out on, and here's the key, we miss out on the life that Jesus has to offer. Well, what was that life, Steve? I quote John chapter 10, verse 10. The thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. But Jesus said, I have come to give you life, and life to the full. That's the life that Jesus has come to offer you and I, and that's what we're getting distracted from. This life of love, of joy, of peace, of generosity, of gratitude, and contentment. We, in fact, miss out on all the best stuff. The best stuff that Jesus has to offer. And once again, my point is without rest, we simply cannot be the people that Jesus has in mind or live the life that Jesus has to offer. And here's why I would argue that rest is central to any follower of Jesus. You remember the question that the Pharisees tried to corner Jesus on that day? Jesus, what's the greatest commandment? Out of everything, what's the greatest commandment? Jesus does so brilliantly here. And he says this. It's what it's about. That's what it's about. That's how I'm summarizing. Of course, those who know, you and I know, he would go and say, to love the Lord your God, as well as your neighbor. Well, that's more than one. He knew he could not separate. To love God, to love others, and also yourself. And of course, he would go on and say, by the way, to love your enemy. It's all to do with love. And in my humble and yet very accurate opinion, did you see what I did there? See what I did there? I would say 80% of loving well is just about being emotionally healthy and spiritually awake. You see, when I'm rested, just for a moment, when I'm rested, it's pretty easy to live and to love well. Almost like Jesus said, can you believe that you will bear much fruit? I can't believe that. But when I'm not rested, I tend not to live and to love well. I tend to slip down into anger mode or grumpy mode or anxiety mode. I wonder what mode you slip into when you don't live and love well. Now, it comes as no surprise that Paul's definition of love to the church in Corinth, his first descriptor from his list is love is patient. It comes as no surprise. Another way to translate that is that love is unhurried. Now, all that to say, is there a practice from the life and teachings of Jesus to work against the restlessness of our condition and culture and to tap into his rest for our soul? Yes, there are many, but at the top of the list is this idea of the Sabbath. The Sabbath. Today, with that as an introduction, I want to talk about paying attention to our inner space and our outer pace. As we see in Scripture, what it has to say about this idea of rest, of Sabbath. Let's go right back into Genesis chapter 1. Let's go back to the first book of the Holy Bible, Genesis chapter 1, verse 1 only, and then we'll go to verse 31, the last verse of this same chapter. In the beginning, God. In the beginning, God. That's your answer for when anyone says, well, where did God come from? You've got to stop somewhere. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Verse 31 says, God saw all that he had made, and it was, I like this word, it wasn't just good, it was very good. And there was evening and there was morning, the sixth day. So for 6 days, think about it just for a moment. Stay here with me for a moment. Here's God. He's hard at work. What's he doing? He's creating. What's he creating? Oh, just the sun, the moon, the stars, the beach, the oceans, the mountains, everything that we get a chance to look at day by day. How about that for incredible productivity, by the way, in 6 days? But watch what happens next as we turn the page to chapter 2, verse 1 to 3. Then the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. By the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, say this with me, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it here it is again, he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. Let me just say that again just for you, just in case, it wasn't clear, that God rested. God rested. Yeah, but Steve, you've forgotten what it's like to have kids. God rested. Yeah, Steve, but you don't own a business, you don't do farming kind of thing. God rested. But Steve, I'm the personality type where I'm a doer, I'm a bit of an extrovert. God, after 6 days of creation, God rested. By the way, this word rest is the word Shabbat. Shabbat in Hebrew. And this is where we get the word Sabbath. And this literally means to stop, to cease, to finish, to stop working, to stop wanting, and to stop worrying. To stop and to rest. And by the way, this is an ancient practice. Yes, I get that. It's an ancient practice. It in fact predates Jesus of Nazareth. It predates Israel. It predates Cain and Abel. And it starts on day 7 of creation in Genesis chapter 2, verse 1. Yes, it is an ancient practice. It is not new. However, for many of us, maybe, this is a new thing today that we're hearing. And by the way, the idea here isn't that God isn't tired and he's not worn out from those 6 days. It's not like, oh, give me a break. No, the idea behind this is it's more like that feeling that you get after a long, hard day's work where you pull up that chair, you look over all that you've done, and you think to yourself, this is good work. This is good work. You delight in your work. That's the idea behind the Sabbath. Now, a couple of books that I've been reading that it's really been helping me with this particular subject. First of all, The Deeply Formed Life by Rich Villadas. I cannot encourage you in this book enough. The Deeply Life, 5 Transformative Values to Root Us in the Way of Jesus. And also this book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. I don't know if you heard that one, John Mark Comer, a bit of an older one now. He's kind of written another book that we're going to, in fact, approach in a couple of weeks' time. But it's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. That's not his quote. I've already given you the quote. That's by Dallas Willard, but as his mentor, etc., etc. And so a great book. And in his book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, John Mark Comer says this, that Sabbath is more than, I like this, is more than just a day. It is a day, but it is a way of being in the world. It is a spirit of restfulness that comes as a result of living in God's loving presence all week long. He goes on and says in his book, and I couldn't help but show this, I was questioning this, but he says this, he says, restfulness is this. Restfulness is margin over busyness, slowness over hurry, quiet over noise, deep relationships over isolation and individualism. It's time alone over crowds. It's delight over distraction. It's enjoyment over envy of what they have. It's clarity about who you are over confusion. It's gratitude over greed, that lust for more. It's contentment over discontentment, that I'm okay with my life how it is. It's working from love rather than working for love. But above all, it's a life of trust in God, not anxiety. This word Shabbat can also be in fact translated to celebrate, It's a kind of rest that is joyful, it's peaceful, but it's a celebration. And so the idea behind the Sabbath is this entire day set aside to celebrate. Celebrate what? The world and our life in it, with family, with friends, and of course with God at the center of that celebration. Once again, it's that whole day set aside to follow God's example, to stop, to rest, to cease, to delight. And it's a day when God has my attention, that I tune out from all of the distractions, but I tune in to the reality of God for my life. See, the Sabbath is a day when I'm fully available to my family and friends with no digital distractions, where possible. I know some of us are getting a little bit nervous about that. But no to-do list. It's a day to wake up to all that is good, to all that is beautiful and true in the world, in spite of what we see on the news, the nightly news. It's a day to celebrate. Now, those of us who may be new to this idea of Sabbath, a great question maybe to ask yourself as you move forward from this and maybe give shape to your own practice is this, that what could I do for 24 hours that would bring me deep joy? I'm not going to give you all the answers here. You're going to have to go away and do a little bit of your own homework, but also don't overthink this. Certainly do not make this a legalistic approach. I'll get to that in just a moment. But something that would cause me to say that this is very good, that would bring me deep joy. Maybe for you, it could be a walk in nature, or you like eating food, or just being with family and friends, or a good book, whatever might work for you. But God in his story, remember, let's go back to his story. God worked for 6 days, remember, and he rested for 1. But here's what I want us to see. That in doing so, God built a rhythm into the fabric of creation. And it's a 6 and 1 kind of rhythm. And it's not a coincidence at all here that every single society in the world runs off a 7-day week. Every single society, except 1793. Did you know that the French, during the Revolution, they tried to create a 10-day week to increase productivity? I kid you not. Google it later and find out for yourself. Incredible. It's on YouTube, and I couldn't believe it when I found that out. 1793, the French started, and it went completely, what's the word I'm looking for? Belly up, there you go. Belly up. It did not work. The amount of things that went wrong in community, in people's lives on a 10-day week, you could possibly imagine. Now back to my notes. And so we live in this world without rhythm, where it's go, 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 it's non-stop, and we never Sabbath. Can I just remind maybe just a couple of people here this morning that you are not a machine. You're a human being, not a human doing. You have a soul, and you are not made to run 24/7. You were made by God, by his gracious hands, to tap into the rhythm that is in creation, which is work, yes, and rest, work and rest. And when you do not Sabbath, when you go against that rhythm that God himself built into your body and into our world, here are just some of the consequences that we face. Burnout, anxiety, high blood pressure, lousy immune system, sickness, brain fog, medication, doubt, disconnect from God, isolation, shallow relationships. The list goes on because there is a rhythm that God created you and I to live into. By the way, all of nature has this. You think about it. The tide comes in. The tide goes out. And what a beautiful beach you have here in Devonport. Wow. The sun rises. The sun sets. It's all a part of the rhythm. We breathe in. We breathe out. Your body, your brain, your emotional life, all of it was set up to live in this cycle and this rhythm of 6 days on, 1 day off. And I know some of you are asking the question, why not? We Aussies only work 5 days, we got 2 days, all that kind of, I'm not here to argue all that kind of stuff, but I think the Americans, help me if I'm wrong, I think they came up with the weekend thing, but anyway, we'll give them thanks for that. Anyway, that's Google later on. I haven't done that. Second thing I'd like us to notice as we move on here is that God blessed the seventh day. In Genesis chapter 1 and chapter 2, God blesses, I don't know if you recall this, he blesses 3 things. He blesses animals. Where are all my animal lovers? Yeah. God blesses animals. You know what he says? There you go. God blessed the seventh day and made it holy because, no, it's the next one, I think. Yeah. There we go. God blessed and said, be fruitful and increase in number and fill the water in the seas and let the birds increase on the earth. Then God blessed and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it. So he's blessing animals. He blesses human beings. Then he blesses the Sabbath. The Sabbath, chapter 2, verses 3. This is a little odd. He blesses animals, beautiful thing. Blesses humans, beautiful thing. The Sabbath, he blesses the Sabbath, which is a day. And of course, the idea is that the Sabbath has this life-giving ability to fill the earth up with more life. Just like animals, just like human beings, to make more life. The third thing I want us to notice is that God blessed the seventh day and made it holy. He made it holy. And this is a fascinating line if you think about it just for a moment. Because this is the first time. And the rabbis have this thing of first mention in Scripture. And this is the first time this word holy is mentioned in Scripture. Right here in Genesis chapter 2, what does God make holy? Time. God makes time holy. And this is fascinating. Hang in there for a moment because it's of when it was written and where it was written. Of course, it was written in the ancient Near East. And back in those days, of course, you have your gods and you have your goddesses, and they were found in the world of space. And so God blesses time here. So why wouldn't he have chosen a holy temple or a holy shrine or a holy mountain? No, God instead blesses this and made it holy because you cannot restrict God. He is a part of our time. He is not in time. He's a part of our time. And we don't need to go to a temple. We don't need to go to a shrine or make a shrine. And so there is a day that God blesses, and it's a holy day, and the Sabbath stands as an invitation from the Creator to creation, from God to human beings who are made in the image of God. We're invited to step into this rhythm where he worked for how many days? 6 days, very good, and he rests for 1 day, and we are to do the same. Now, when we take God up on this offer, when we don't, in fact, take him up on his offer, as I've mentioned before, we reap those consequences. We become emotionally unhealthy and spiritually depleted, which is why, as this story goes on, we see God command his people to Sabbath. This is a command. And by the way, every command that God gives is always marked by love. Absolutely. To set the scene, we're going to fast forward from Adam and Eve in the garden, from Genesis 1, 2, etc., to the God's people now the Israelites who are now in the wilderness. There's no farm, there's no livestock, and they've got to live off the generosity of God himself. This is a faith test. What do the people of God do? Let's find out. Exodus chapter 16, do not turn off. Check this out. Exodus chapter 16, 9 to 15. Then Moses told Aaron, say to the entire Israelite community, come before the Lord, for he has heard your grumbling. While Aaron was speaking to the whole Israelite community, they looked toward the desert, and there was the glory of the Lord appearing in the cloud. Wow. The Lord said to Moses, I have heard the grumbling of the Israelites. Tell them, at twilight you will eat meat, and in the morning you will be filled with bread. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God. That evening quail came and covered the camp, and in the morning there was a layer of dew over the camp. When the dew was gone, thin flakes like frost on the ground appeared on the desert floor. When the Israelites saw it, they said to each other, what is it? For they did not know what it was. Moses said to them, it's the bread the Lord has given you to eat. Each morning everyone gathered as much as they needed, and when the sun grew hot, it melted away. On the sixth day, they gathered twice as much, 2 omers, that's a measurement, for each person, and the leaders of the community came and reported this to Moses. He said to them, this is what the Lord commanded. Tomorrow is to be a day of Sabbath rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. So bake what you want to bake and boil what you want to boil. Save whatever is left and keep it until morning. So they saved it until morning, as Moses commanded, and it did not stink or get maggots in it, which is a good thing. Eat it today, Moses said, because today is the Sabbath to the Lord. You will not find any of it on the ground today. 6 days you are to gather it, but on the 7th day, the Sabbath, there will not be any. Nevertheless, the type A people went out on the 7th day to gather it, but they found none. Then the Lord said to Moses, how long will you refuse to keep my command? Moses gets in trouble here. Bear in mind that the Lord has given you the Sabbath. That is why on the 6th day he gives you bread for 2 days. Everyone is to stay where they are on the 7th day. No one is to go out. So the people rested on the 7th day. The story goes on, and a few months go by, and they're still in the wilderness. They're starting to get it. They're starting to practice Sabbath, to live off the generosity of God on the 7th day. And we get to chapter 20 of Exodus, where we get the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai. And by the way, the 10 Commandments are not given to save the people of God. They are given to show what saved people look like. You see, God graciously extends his hand, and now he's saying, I want you to live as my people in a different way. And so what God's doing here is he's instilling dignity and significance into his people, and he wants them to know the reason for which they were rescued, to demonstrate what it means to follow him, to demonstrate what free people look like. And he lets them know that in fact, I've rescued you, but now I am commanding you. Once again, these commands are always marked by love, by a gracious, giving God. So we get to chapter 20, verses 4. Many of us are familiar with this. I'll just keep moving through. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me, no images before me. Don't misuse the name of the Lord your God. Then we get to verse 8, which is commandment number 4. Verse 8 to 11 says, remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. It is a holy day. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the 7th day it's a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you nor your son or daughter, your male, female, animals, foreign residents. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, but he rested. Here it is. He rested on the 7th day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Remember the Sabbath. I like that word remember. It's got the very first word, remember. Why? We forget. Remember remember the Sabbath. Why? Because if you are not resting, you might in fact violate one of the other commandments. Remember, if you aren't resting, you might most likely compromise in some area of your life. But if you cannot rest, maybe it's an indication of your slavery. Because free people rest. Let's remember, this wasn't a rhythm. This wasn't a part of the Israelites' rhythm of life. Days before they were slaves, what do slaves get up to? Work, 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 non-stop work. It was a system all about accomplishment and accumulation. 7 days a week, 365 days a year, no rest. That's the world Israel is coming out of. And by the way, that's the world that you and I live in, that we call home. And so this was not an easy transition for God's people, of course, from that non-stop kind of life to 6 on and 1 off. This is a whole new way, God's saying. This is a whole new way to be human. This is a whole new way to be with me and to be a follower with me. So I'm hearing some questions about this. I'm hearing them coming very thick and fast. How am I supposed to do this? Can I just remind you, in fact, can I encourage you and remind us that a little bit in Jesus' hands goes a long way. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 hours, 10 hours. And I love Willard's quote here. To ruthlessly eliminate hurry. It's ruthless. You have to be ruthless. You see, the more you give yourself to this, the more that your soul will in fact crave it. However, the same principle applies for social media. And so Israel, yes, they're slow to get it. Slow to get it, but over time they start to settle into this new rhythm. The fourth thing that I want us to notice is that Sabbath is not the same thing as a day off. You'll hear throughout what I've just shared over and over and over. It's to the Lord. It's to the Lord. It's to the Lord. It's holy. And of course, us Aussies, you know, we get this whole deal of days off. We don't work. It's a day off is when we don't work for our employer. But we still work. We still work. It's when we catch up on all the stuff that we still have to do. And so we get how to worship, we get how to shop, we get how to play, we get how to consume, but very few of us know how to rest. And so we confuse relaxation with restoration. Yet the Sabbath is a holy day. It's a 24-hour period set apart for and dedicated to God, not just as a day for rest, but also a day for worship, where we reconnect with God, with the God who made us each. Now, if you're confused about some of this and you've got plenty of questions, once again, I'm going to leave that with you to do some homework. I just don't have the time to share, all that necessary detail. But maybe, run every activity in your life through this grid. That is this worship and is this rest? Is this rest and is this worship? If the answer, by the way, is yes, enjoy it, guilt-free. If the answer is no, hold off on it. Not because it's a bad thing, but there are 6 other days for that. And by the way, when I say worship, rest and worship, yes, come to church, yes, sing, study, pray, feed your soul. Maybe extend your spiritual disciplines to include maybe that walk in nature. Maybe eating whatever meal you love with those you love. Maybe a board game with the family. I'm just giving some ideas. But the idea is to result in that sense of, this is very good. Resulting in wonder and delight and gratitude and joy in God's presence. Notice in verse 29, by the way, if we just go back, to bear in mind that the Lord has given you, the next slide, I think, verse 29 here, has given you the Sabbath. And my fifth and final thing this morning is this. That the Sabbath is not a reward for hard work, but it's a gift. It's a gift. It's the way that you and I were set up. It's the way that the world was set up for us to thrive. Yes, we know how to work, we know how to play, but to rest and to worship, it's a little foreign. It's a little foreign. It's not another thing to add to our to-do list. It's a gift. It's a gift for our benefit from God with love. It's in fact the key, as Jesus said, isn't it, to the abundant, full life. That Sabbath is not a reward for hard work, but it's a gift. It's a gift. Open that gift. And of course, I'll just quickly answer this question. There's all sorts of debate about this when it comes to whether or not followers of Jesus, have to keep the Sabbath, whether it's still a part of the New Testament covenant. Well, here are some of my answers to that particular question. Firstly, the Sabbath is one of the 10 commandments. The other 9 are not in question, so why should this be? Jesus was himself, in fact, an adamant practitioner of the Sabbath. This is the one command that is rooted in the Genesis story. And so the Sabbath still stands as a rhythm of creation and as a gift, remember, as a way God set up your body and soul to thrive. Now, ignoring it, I'll continue to remind that, ignoring it has serious, serious consequences. It'll either be in delight or discipline. Your choice. Now, for some of us, I want to address the answers here about legalistic. I was brought up in I don't want to say legalistic way, but in the church. It was a beautiful thing. But there was legalism about my upbringing, about this idea. Sometimes from church, we'd have to hide ourselves from going to buy some milk on the day. Anyone else can, okay, we've got a few other people of my generation and older. Believe it or not, we had to hide because we needed something from anyway. It's not about that. It's not about legalism. It's not about being restrictive. It's not about being irrelevant because it's an Old Testament thing. What I want us to see is this, that the Sabbath is a spiritual formation practice, that it's an invitation by Jesus himself to us to step into and to live by. What is the Sabbath? It's a 24-hour period with no have-tos or shoulds. Excuse my language. I think we go to the next one, please. I think we've got here we go. Sabbath is a spiritual formation practice. A 24 period with no have-tos or shoulds. I don't know if that's the right spelling. Please excuse me. Which is to result in deep rest and renewal. Whenever works for you. Whenever works for you. You and I know this world that we live in. Don't get too hung up on the time of it all and the legalism of it all. Take a 24-hour period when you can to what? 2 things. To rest and to worship. Very good. Recap and I'm done. Recap. Here we go. Sabbath was built in to the rhythm of creation, and going against this rhythm has consequences. It is a blessed day by God. Not only that, it is a holy day. What is it, a holy? It's a holy day to rest and to worship. It's not a day off. Yes, it is a command marked by love, but it's also a gift. The Sabbath will teach you not just about one day of your life, by the way. It'll teach you about all the other days of your life.